You are watching the video version of the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast. We are so glad that you are here. If you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can find the Marketing Should Be Fun show on any of your favorite podcast platforms, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. But most of all, we're so glad you're here, and I hope that you enjoy today's conversation. Well, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Should Be Fun. My name's Austin Savage. I'm the founder of Savage Content Collective, and I'm here with my good friend, Kelsey Zarko, who is the founder of Curate Social. Kelsey, we had a week where I did an episode without you, and I felt crazy. It's so different.
I'm glad you missed me, but I'm also excited to listen to it.
It's going to be, it was a good one, actually. And, you know, we're incorporating some of those here and there. It's kind of fun, switching it up, getting back to some guests here on the show. I think that's fun, and marketing should be fun. So there we go. But how are you today?
I'm good. If people are watching the video version, I can't promise you there's a beautiful background behind me. We're in the middle of, we just finished school. We're about to move. So things feel a little crazy, but also really good at the same time. Peace in the chaos, you know?
Peace in the chaos. I know the moving stresses.
You do.
And Larissa and I were just talking recently. We were like, I think for the first time, we feel like we just don't want to move again.
I was just going to say, if you're about to tell me you're going to move, I'm going to say, no, you don't. I was there with you for 2 of those. You don't want to do it again.
We were traveling to North Carolina. We were like, honestly, we could see ourselves here. We were like, the idea of moving again just sounds terrible. Honestly. Yeah,
that is tough. Cross country moves are a whole thing. They are really fun and exciting, but a whole thing.
Yeah, you know that much better than I do.
Yes.
How is your dog handling the move? Our dog always gets stressed whenever he sees boxes.
Which she doesn't act any different. So we were actually just talking last night. We are moving not very far from here. We're super excited. You've kind of been here for the whole journey, but we're moving closer to like all of our family, or not family, but our family, our community, all of our friends, the kids' school, our church, like all of that. We're gonna be so much closer. Right now we do a lot of driving. So it doesn't feel super stressful. I think maybe more exciting. So maybe she's picking up on that, but we were just talking yesterday about how like, it'll be so interesting. She kind of has her like night routine here at our house currently, and to see like what she'll do when we get into this new house and how long it will take her to get used to like a new layout and all the things. So I don't know. This whole dog thing is still new to me. So here we go.
Yeah, I know. You honestly never know. And it's been different for our dogs, I think, at like every house that we've been at, because we moved quite a bit. But they figure it out. You know, you might regress for a second, but but she'll figure it out.
The big thing is we're going to have a pool in our backyard, which I am so excited about, but I'm very curious to see, like, does this dog just go jump in the pool every day? Like, what are we going to do? Yeah.
Have you taken her to a pool before? Like, has she swam in one?
She has been to around one, maybe when she was a puppy, and she did get in. So we'll see. We'll have to do some training.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Definitely want to keep an eye on that for sure.
Yeah. There is a fence, like a gate around the whole pool. So that will help. It'll be a new adventure.
Well, what the heck? This sounds like the coolest house ever.
You need to come down. We've been talking about, you coming to Dallas for how many years?
Forever. Yeah. Seriously. Oh my gosh, it is time. I love it. I can't wait to see pictures of it. It's going to be super cool. So, Kelsey, what is our this or that for today?
You ready for this or that?
This or that? Yes.
Okay.
Go for it.
Summertime is here, pretty much. When you're listening to this, it'll be even closer.
Truth.
Think in the lens of summer. Would you rather only be able to eat s'mores all summer or ice cream all summer?
Easiest answer, easiest question that we've ever had here on the show. Ice cream all day, every day during the summer. As I have gotten older, s'mores, far too messy. S'mores are also far too complicated to make. And anytime you're making s'mores, you have to make them as a parent for 17 other people. And so it's way too complicated to even make one for yourself. So ice cream is the way to go. It tastes better anyways. There's more variety in flavors, and it's more refreshing.
I've never felt such like deep animosity coming through the microphone before. What did s'mores ever do to you? Okay, but here's the real question. You and I, we know my sister owns an ice cream truck. You've frequented it. Have you ever
Already
had the
been this season.
s'more flavor?
I would never even deviate to get it because she always has the peanut butter cookie dough, or she has the exhausted parent, which is kind of like a little bit of espresso and some chocolate.
And some bourbon. Let's not forget.
And
That's
some bourbon.
delicious.
Yes. So I think she almost always has one of those two flavors, or mint chocolate chip if she doesn't have one of those. And so I would never deviate. S'mores would never, like, I would never see that, and I would never feel, oh, I need to get that. I need to.
It's her top flavor. Her top
is
flavor.
It really?
Mm-hmm. People like go crazy for it. So maybe you should try a sample sometime.
Is kind of mind blowing to me, honestly. Wow. Okay.
Well, now that I'm going to buy you a shirt that says I hate s'mores, we can move on. I feel.
What's yours? Would you say s'mores?
I maybe would. I don't know. I do love both of them. I love ice cream, but I've never been the person that's like, I gotta have ice cream right now. Like Matt, he would have a bowl of ice cream every night if he really wanted to. Yeah. But I'm a little bit more savory, and so I don't know if just the mixture and texture of s'mores maybe is like more fun. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe it's because I always have Matt make it for me, so then I don't have to deal with the mess. I don't know. Fair. That's a pretty hard question, though. I don't know that I would ever want to have to pick between the two. So
yeah,
s'mores just feel a little magical.
Similar question. Is the culture around s'mores the same in Texas as it kind of is here in the Midwest? Because I feel like s'mores are like a huge thing here. Is it like national?
I don't know. Well, you know, the restaurant we go to, Marty B's, where I post that we are a lot. We sit outside. They have like a big fire pit. Yeah. Yes. They have outdoor picnic tables. They have an outdoor stage. Like it's just a whole vibe. Mm-hmm. They have a little like corral that the kids can like play with, this like fake ropey in a bowl. It's a Texas thing. Okay. But you can get a little platter of s'more fixings and just sit around and make your s'mores after you have dinner.
Okay.
So I feel like it maybe feels more experiential and like special and fun versus we're not like in the backyard having a bonfire in October making them. So it maybe is a little different.
Okay. That's interesting. I've never thought about s'mores and if they're a thing across the country or not. So,
well, I'm happy to provide this provoking thought for you today.
Honestly, life-changing, truly life-changing. Kelsey, we today are finishing our spring cleaning series, bringing it to a little close. And honestly, it's been a really fun series. I always feel like, which maybe this is just our personalities, maybe it's our brands, I don't know. But anytime we kind of like come back to like the basics in some ways, it I think just feels very grounding as marketers. And it just like, there's always little things that I pull from it that's like, oh, why haven't I thought about that in a while? Or why haven't I implemented that in like the strategies I'm creating? And so that, I think that's kind of been what this series has done for me personally, at least, is, we talked about mindset, and that was really grounding to just be like, okay, what messages am I carrying? We talked about some of those practical, like if we just want to refresh some of our platforms, refresh how we're showing up in the different places digitally, how can we do that? And I think there were some things that I took from that of like, oh, I do need to refresh my bio on Instagram. I do need to incorporate more postscripts in my emails. Just the little things like that. And today we want to talk about goal setting and what it looks like to just kind of like hone in on our goals around our marketing, our goals for our content. And nowhere today do we want to do a deep dive into here's how you set goals that really mark the trajectory of your business towards a specific place in the future. But we want to just kind of keep this idea of spring cleaning going, of what are some small tweaks, some small questions that we can ask that will help us be more intentional with how we're showing up or how we're choosing to utilize our energy.
Yeah. I think in the, continuing with the theme of spring cleaning, we're kind of rounding out spring, heading into summer. The whole reason you spring clean is to just kind of like reset before you head into the rest of the year. And so the same thing is true here. What little tweaks or just things maybe you haven't thought about for a minute in the busyness of getting the first half of the year started that can just level set the ground for some actual progress, getting you where you want to be by the end of the year, and just helping you, create systems and rhythms and processes that make you really enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. So first thing here, let's dive right in is, first kind of like angle around this, I think to think about is really the foundational question, especially when it comes to goals and goals in relation to content marketing is is your content still aligned with your business goals? Kelsey, I know that you and I, we see this all the time. And just even before recording this episode, you're sharing just some stories of how we've, seen this play out when there are some, I think, like rhythms and maybe even like assumptions that businesses can kind of make about what their content needs to be, or kind of like misconceptions that it's easy to apply to like your audience. And maybe creating content that's like too complicated for the people that you're trying to reach, or the questions that they're really asking. So what do you think, Kelsey? Like, what are those kind of common things that maybe pull businesses away from creating content that's aligned with their business goals?
This one makes me think a lot of even going way back to our mindset episode that we did to start this series.
Way back.
I know. When I said way back, I was like, okay, 2 episodes ago, but it's fine. It feels like that sometimes, right?
It does.
It is easy to get stuck in the weeds of comparison, or even just like you said, assumptions of like, well, everyone's doing this, so I should be, or this worked one time, so I need to duplicate it over and over and over again, versus kind of, when I think of spring cleaning this particular area, it's taking a step back and thinking through, okay, wait, who is my ideal client or customer, or, person that you're trying to reach? What do they care about? What's hard? What's easy? What are they hoping for? These are some classic marketing things that they're classic and basic, like you said, for a reason. Really having that key person in mind when you're creating content so that you can talk to the person you actually want to connect with. Yeah. And on the flip side, but similarly, making sure that you're still being who you are too. Again, not getting caught up. Trends are important. I spend a ton of my life keeping up with the trends, and that's
truth.
It's very good practice to do things that are resonating and fun and helpful right now, with the caveat of, is this authentic to you? Because no one will connect with it if not. And is it going to be the thing that your ideal client wants to hear, see? Will they resonate and connect with that?
Yeah. In our last episode about funnels that I recorded with Christy from my team, she kind of called those the like laying in bed questions. Like, what are those questions or fears or like worries that the people that you're trying to reach are like literally like, laying in bed thinking about? And, is the content that you're creating actually addressing, those fears and those kind of core concerns or worries about their organization, their business, their brand? And I think that's a great place for this question of like, is your content aligned with your business goals? Like, is it addressing those initial fears and concerns and challenges that the people you're trying to reach are facing? I think, one of the things that we have often talked about here on the podcast is, so often we're just like throwing our offers at people, and it's just like, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. And we always need to come back to that place. But I think a lot of the value for content really is thinking through each stage of the journey of, that awareness to consideration to decision that people move through, and making sure that we are creating content around each place of that journey, starting at those, kind of core emotions around, the problem that we solve, leading into, answering questions around our brand and kind of like bringing clarity to how we solve the problem, and then making it really clear about how people can take that next step. You want to make sure that your content is addressing each of those. And that really helps you reach your business goals and helps ground your content in a way that actually helps your strategy or helps you kind of reach those goals as a business.
I just saw something the other day that reminds me of this too. It will probably feel repetitive too. I think that's the reason we can start to slide away from creating content that really resonates with our key avatar, however you want to say that, because your content is probably going to be like the same 7 things over and over again, because it's true. If your content is more complicated than that, your business is probably more complicated. You maybe aren't as dialed in on what you're offering and the clarity behind that. So if it feels a little bit boring and repetitive, maybe that's a good thing. We can always spice that up in a variety of other ways, but the core message of what you're communicating really shouldn't change that much. So be, comforted and be encouraged if that does feel true for you, that you've probably honed in on your key messaging, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love, you and I were talking about just having clarity around like who your audience is, like in the first place as well. We were talking about that before recording the episode. But I think that's just such a core part of this. Like, obviously, to know their concerns or fears or emotions, you need to know who they are. But I think that just becomes such a solid filter for is the content that I'm creating actually valuable for my audience or actually valuable for my business, my organization? And I think when we kind of see, like, I know recently I've seen some clients, you know, when they come to us or interested in working with us, we've seen them kind of like drift towards like some internally valuable content that like is just very specific and like very valuable to them internally. But there's like a disconnect between what the people they're trying to reach are feeling and facing and the specifics of how they're solving the problem. And we've kind of been working with our clients to like, okay, let's ground ourselves with our content strategy in where the people that we're trying to reach are at. And let's just kind of bring these two things together to almost step back with the content that we're creating, create content that's much more simple, you know, much more focused on simple fears, questions, challenges around the topic, and let that kind of be the connecting place that leads into some of those more specifics, you know, for answering questions and being more specific about how they solve problems.
Yeah, so good. Before we get specific on the offer, we have to be specific about what are we even solving, and do you understand who I am? So I love that.
I love it. Okay. Another aspect of goal setting is frequency. Every year, I can guarantee that almost everyone listening did this exact same thing. You start the year off, you're like, I'm going to post 7 days a week, or even less than that. You're like, I'm going to post 3 days a week. And you're like, I have maybe posted once or twice a week for the year. Very, very common, very easy to kind of get stuck in that place. I think of like even disappointment, like in ourselves, or just frustration with trying to figure out those rhythms. And now, as we're spring cleaning our marketing strategy, it's a great time to just reset. What happened, the last few months? Let it go. Got a fresh start right here. You can create fresh goals around your consistency, around your frequency, and you can do it without burning out. Kelsey, what thoughts do you have around this?
Yeah, it's true. It's fine also if your consistency needs to look different right now. A lot of us, if you're listening, are probably a business owner in some way, shape, or form that is doing a lot of it on your own. Maybe you just probably wear a lot of hats, and it's common in the summer for those hats to look different. And so also take full permission to change whatever goal you set for winter and spring to now be different for, the second part of the year. For summer, that's totally fine. And here's the other thing I want to tell you. Nobody cares. Nobody notices. It's fine if you're like, oh, I didn't post for a month and now I'm going to start posting. People are going to think that I'm trying too hard. Whatever. Nobody cares. Do it.
Yeah.
Just get out there and do what you can do, and just silence the noises of what you think everyone else is noticing. They're not thinking about it nearly as much as you are. And if they are, that's their own problem, and they're probably not your ideal client.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing. Yeah. I think like just really being honest with ourselves of like, what's realistic. And, we've talked about before is that we want to push ourselves, right? We want to be consistent. We want to have that consistent presence, but we also need to be honest with ourselves about, what is realistic, not only for just the pace of life that we are at in general, but also just like you were saying, like the season of life as well. Like we're approaching the summer. Kelsey, you got kids home every other week this summer. My kids are going to a summer camp, but it's like our schedule's going to be way different, over the summer. And so it's way less realistic for me to create as much content and to keep all of the other things going for us internally. And so, I've shifted a lot of my efforts towards this podcast, creating, slightly less social content, but still trying to be intentional about that each week. And you can do the same thing in your brand and your business, but taking times to almost reset our goals around that frequency and to be honest about what our capacity is for that, it can really make a big difference and just help us be more consistent in the long run.
100%. And it's okay to be creative with it too. This is like the hardest part of the podcast for me to talk about, because I'm like, do as I say, not as I do. Don't go look at my Instagram. I'm consistent for like 12 other people, but it's hard to find time for your own sometimes when you're the social media manager. But my goals center a lot more around, I launched a new service and a new offer last month. So I was way more invested in my email and just being creative there. And then it's always my goal to be way more active in stories and showing different stories from my own clients on my Instagram stories, linking things there that they can be invited into. And there's just different ebbs and flows of how often I'm on my feed versus in my email. I have best case dream world things and then realistic things. And those are all normal and okay.
You have stayed very consistent with your stories, Kelsey. So it is do as I do, not just do as I say.
There we go. Do as I do on my Instagram stories.
I love it. So we talked about just making sure that your content is still aligned with your business goals as a whole. What are you trying to accomplish as a business? How is your content supporting that or not supporting that right now? We talked about, really resetting our goals around frequency for our content. And the last thing here, I think, especially when it comes to goal setting and just those kind of small tweaks that we want to make to just kind of like, really make sure that the goals we're setting are actually serving us and, keeping those up to date, is considering like, what are we measuring and what does it look like to actually track metrics that are meaningful to you, but also like meaningful to the goals that you're trying to reach. So this is a great opportunity to revisit your metrics as a whole. How do you see that playing out, or what are some kind of opportunities you see on that front?
Yeah, I come to this often just through the lens of social. So I would speak to that first, but I'm tracking follower count all the time for my clients. That's just a normal rhythm I do. It's something we talk about, and that is important. But I think this one is a great reminder as I was kind of thinking through this episode, as you're listening, that's not the only place that you're going to see movement, especially if you're growing on social specifically. There are so many other metrics that can be important depending on your goals in this season. I think about the engagement levels. You could have a lot of followers coming in, but are they sticking around? Are they engaging with you? Are they building trust with you? Vice versa. So giving yourself just some space to look at some of that. And it may even produce new goals or, fresh spins on ideas for you of, oh, I noticed I had a ton of engagement around this specific area. Let me kind of deep dive into that. So engagement, follower count, also like shares or things like that. If you notice something has a really high share level, you're probably pinpointing on something that like hit well, resonated well. And so it's really important for us not to get stuck on follower count only. I've got a friend that we talk a lot about Instagram. She's kind of growing on her own right now and has a lot of big growth goals ahead of her. Her engagement levels are stunning to me. I'm always encouraging her in this. She maybe has 1,000 followers, which is a great number. But it's, certainly not like a 10K account, but she'll easily have 50 to 100 comments on a post. And there's just some things you trade off as you grow bigger and gain those bigger following accounts, things just change differently. And so I want you to be encouraged to look at all the different ways you might be growing, or look at all the different opportunities you might have out there versus just, I want to get to 10K, I want to get to 100K, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. It's honestly like not as valuable as we want it to be,
Totally.
And especially
what's moving the needle. Yeah,
exactly. And thinking about how social operates, like there are still, it's less than it used to be. And people, I think, get caught up on that, but there are still opportunities to stretch your content beyond your audience. It starts there, but there are plenty of ways that you can create shareable content or content that connects, that ends up making its way kind of, around the app and beyond the people who just follow you. But this is a slight tangent, but I don't know if this is a true like shift in behavior, but for a couple different accounts recently, we've seen posts like the share rate has like way outranked the likes for a post like multiple times recently for separate clients. And that's been really interesting to me of like this content, people maybe didn't like interact like with the creator of it. Like we didn't see the like, we didn't see the comment, but we saw 45 shares, so they were sending this to their spouse or sending this to, a friend who, would connect with the topic. And I'm like, that's really valuable. Like, it's really valuable information for us of like, this type of content feels shareable, but also just really valuable for that client as a creator as well. Like for how that post connects and is shown, shares are very highly valuable on that front. Yeah. So
it's fascinating to me to think about the shift of, I don't know, someday I might write a book about this, of just the way like human behavior changes with the app. You think about like we used to scroll and like hit the like. I don't like any posts hardly anymore. I know. Like my clients, I'm like, ooh, but I'll scroll and I'll just hit the share on like, oh, I have like my top 5 people that I share posts with all the time, and it just comes up and I do it. And it's just another way we interact with people. And so yes, number one, we'll take any hit on the algorithm you want to give us. So any shareable content is valuable. It's also just super great metrics to look at for, okay, what were my top shared posts this month? Well, those are 3 messaging pieces that I probably just need to keep cycling through over and over.
Oh, totally. Yeah. 2 other things on this topic that come to mind for me. We were recently pitching a a kind of larger agency. They do a lot of just really cool work for e-commerce brands. And they specifically like only have a LinkedIn account. And it was interesting because one of the things that they were really wanting to do is LinkedIn ads, and they were wanting to, put some like decent money behind it. But their main goal for that advertising campaign was like followers. They were like, we want to see a year over year increase of our followers of our LinkedIn page. And I was like, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, that's a waste of your money. It's like, you'll get some value from that. Of course, it's valuable to get followers. We want to see people, following along, makes it more likely that they'll see your content and, increases that capability of trust in the long run. But I'm like, if you're putting dollars behind this and, really trying to get people's attention on something, I'm like, we should be creating a funnel that we're leading them into, just offering people a free resource. And it's much more valuable for you to get them on your email list and be able to like market to them in kind of that intentional way where you're guaranteeing that your message, that your value is landing in their inbox or being delivered to them personally, than it is to kind of get them to follow along on social. And like, both are valuable, but like, that's just an example of when we're kind of making assumptions of, okay, this feels like really measurable. This feels like, something that would give us value. And it kind of like almost distracts us from perhaps what like the actual purpose behind some of that energy could be. On that
when
front.
You're talking about earlier, like we want the awareness and then we want like the trust building and then we want the movement. It's good to think through like which of these things in my content marketing, the follower one almost leads more to awareness. Even when someone's clicking on your page and just seeing like, it's just the reality of the world we live in. If you have 1,000 followers versus 10,000, like there's just going to be some different things they assume in their mind versus I want you to click this link and buy this thing. Well, I'd rather be right in your inbox then. And so they all play together like you're saying, but it is helpful to think through that consumer journey when you're thinking about where you're going to put your energy and your ad spend and all of that.
Yeah. And it's unique to you. And I think that's the biggest thing of like, because part of the reason I made that recommendation is just the type of content that business is creating, the style of content and the industry that they're in. Email just is like a more weighty player in that space. So I think the second thing on this for me that comes up is like, also being honest with yourself about like the metrics that you're actually going to track and that actually do mean something to you as well. I think it depends on the personality, but there are plenty of entrepreneurs, plenty of creators who like we can feel more pressure to kind of like keep an eye on more things than maybe we need to, or maybe that will get value from. Like we always talk about, like consistency is one of the most important things with content marketing over a long period of time. If you're kind of like over focused on those individual pieces of how did this piece do? How did this piece do? How did this piece do? Then you can really get stuck of like constantly feeling like you're having to tweak like every day rather than just kind of looking at your strategy over the long run and seeing, those trends of this topic's connecting, this style is connecting, my podcast is doing better than my email, or my email is doing better than my social, or, those kinds of trends. And I think just really being honest with yourself of like, what do I care about as well? Like, what am I looking to see from the energy that I'm putting into this? Be willing to learn new things, of course, like if it's, something that you don't understand. But I think that can help clarify the energy that you're putting into tracking your goals throughout the year as well.
I think that's the recipe for sustainability instead of burnout, which is exactly what we want for you.
All right. Well, those are our spring cleaning tips for your goals as you kind of head into the summer. I don't even know when summer actually starts.
June.
Is it June? Okay.
June
You're
sometime.
So smart. You got the teacher energy always.
Maybe so. Sometime in June. I think isn't it like summer solstice in the 20th or something?
I do think that is correct. So anyways, it is still technically spring, I suppose.
Still okay to spring clean as you wait for summer to arrive.
But we hope that there was something in here that felt valuable, felt practical to you. Hopefully one of those points feels like something specifically that you want to focus in on as you are approaching executing the rest of your strategy this year. So as always, thank you for listening, and we will see you right back here on the Marketing Should Be Fun podcast.